Welcome to the second part of the presentation on the Upodghata of Shankar's commentary on the Isha Upanishad. Having explained that the Yathatmya of the Atman is a karmashesha that is lacking in any residual action, Shankar adds a further caveat. न ह्येवं लक्षणम् आत्मनो याथात्म्यम् उत्पाद्यं विकार्यम् आप्यं संस्कार्यं वा कर्तृभोक्तृरूपं वा येन कर्मशेषता स्यात्. The problem is that people may agree with the lakshanas, the characteristics which have been just described as the yathatmya of the Atman. They may admit that yes, in reality the Atman is Shuddha, Apapa, Buddha and so on, but will then say that it is precisely this yathatmya which constitutes the karmasheshata of the Atman. Since the Atman is ordinarily not experienced according to its yathatmya, but rather exactly as its opposite, people are likely to interpret akarmashesha to mean only that the Atman has no residual action to perform in the world, but that it does possess residual action inasmuch as it has to attain to its yathatmya. Shankar is here cautioning against such misinterpretation. He says that these lakshanas, these characteristics of the Atman's yathatmya, are such that they are not utpadya, producible, vikarya, modifiable, apya, achievable, samskarya, purifiable, or kartrubhoktru rupam, bearing the form of a doer or enjoyer. Kartru is the one who commits the action and bhoktru is the one who experiences the result. Basically, we engage in this world as the karta and bhokta of actions. However, the characteristics of the Atman's yathatmya are such that they are not something yet to be accomplished, and so one should not confuse the yathatmya of the Atman as its karmasheshata. How do we know this? Given the diametric opposition between the yathatmya of the Atman and the Atman as it is ordinarily experienced, how can Shankar say that this yathatmya is not an objective to be achieved through the performance of karma? Shankar mounts his defense based entirely on scripture. Sarvasam Upanishadam Atmayathatmya Nirupanena eva upakshayat Gitanam Mokshadharmanam cha evam paratvat. Because all the Upanishads undergo an upakshaya, that is, they utterly exhaust themselves by a nirupana, a determination and ascertainment of the Atma Yathatmya, that is, the essential nature of the self. It means that just as the Karmakanda section of the Vedas enjoin certain karmas or actions, in the same way the Jnanakanda section of the Vedas, that is the Upanishads, enjoin certain self-knowledge, which is the Atma Yathatmya. Moreover, the scope of their enjoinment is limited to an ascertainment of self-knowledge, and there are no actions prescribed to actually attain the ascertained state. This can only mean that the ascertained state must be an accomplished one and not one that is yet to be accomplished. Furthermore, texts on moksha dharma, that is the texts which enjoin moksha, that is liberation from samsara, such as the Bhagavad Gita, consider it so to be the highest, that is the highest way. I think Shankar has made this distinction between the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads because unlike the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita enjoins action in the world. Therefore, Shankar is suggesting that even if the Bhagavad Gita enjoins action in the world, it does not view action as leading directly to moksha, but only as cleansing the person of the accumulated karmas of past lives and making him ready for the self knowledge which brings about moksha, or rather, which is itself moksha, inasmuch as it does not involve any action. Shankar has elaborated on this argument in his Bhagavad Gita Bhashya, but that's a story for another day. तस्माद् आत्मनः अनेककर्तृत्व भोक्तृत्वादि च अशुद्धत्व पापविद्धत्वादि च उपादाय लोकबुद्धिसिद्धं कर्माणि विहितानि. Therefore it follows that actions are prescribed having presupposed the multiplicity of the self, its doership and its enjoyership, and that the self is impure and afflicted by sin, presuppositions that are based on commonsensical thinking. It is lokabuddhi siddham, that is established by worldly or practical or commonsensical thinking, that there are many selves. Your self is different from my self, which is different from the selves of all other creatures. That each one of us here in the body is a doer and an enjoyer. That this embodiment, this contact with the body, sullies the self and causes it to partake the sins of the body. It is having taken all this for granted that humans engage in action to improve their condition, to make progress materially and spiritually. Moving on to the next paragraph, there are two long sentences. First, यो हि कर्मफलेनार्थी दृष्टेन ब्रह्मवर्चसादिना अदृष्टेन स्वर्गादिना च द्विजातिरहं न कारणत्वकुब्जत्वाद्यनधिकारप्रयोजकधर्मवान् इत्यात्मानं मन्यते सोऽधिक्रियते कर्मस्विति ह्यधिकारविदो वदन्ति. Let us understand this assertion in parts, beginning with the subject and the verb. The adhikara vidaha are those who are knowledgeable about adhikaras, that is, competency in the performance of actions. Adhikara vido vadanti means those knowledgeable about adhikaras say. What do they say? That sodhi kriyate karmasu. He is entitled or is eligible or is competent, that is, he has the adhikara with regards to actions. Who has the adhikara? Yohi karmafalenarthi, the one who is an arthi, that is, a supplicant, a person who desires what? Karmafala, the fruit or result of actions. What kind of fruits? Both drushta, visible, and adrushta, invisible. For example, when you get your salary for doing your job, that is drushtafala. The example given here is Brahmavarchas, which I find a bit odd because one would think that it is an adrushtafala. I'm not sure what Brahmavarchas exactly means. Gambhiranand has translated it as spiritual eminence, but we should refer to Mimamsa and Dharmashastra texts to understand what is properly implied by it and why Shankar considers it a kind of drushtafala. The example of the drushtafala is Swarga, heaven, which is clearly an imperceptible result. The people who desire the results of action think, I am Dvijati, that is, twice born, having performed the Upanayana ceremony and thus become eligible for study of the Vedas and ritual performance. I also do not suffer from any defects such as being one-eyed or hunchbacked. Now let us unpack the phrase Nakanatva Anadhikara Prayojaka Dharmavan. Dharmavan is one possessing some dharma, which in this case means a characteristic or property. What dharma? And anadhikar prayojaka dharma. That is, some dharma which makes one lose adhikara or eligibility to perform ritual. Karnatva and kubjatva, one-eyedness and hunchbackedness, are examples of such anadhikar prayojaka dharmas. For example, if a ritual includes a step which requires the performer to look at something with both eyes, then a one-eyed person cannot complete it successfully and thus becomes ineligible for the ritual. These are the three conditions for performing rituals. One must possess desire for their results, one must be dvijati, and one must not possess any defects that may hinder the performance of the ritual. Those who satisfy these three conditions have the adhikara to engage in karma. So the Adhikar Vidya advises.